Hey guys, so we're here looking at this sort of summative assignment that we're going to be doing. Now, you're not going to be making this thing specifically, but what you are going to be doing is creating a flat design sort of triptych, sort of a series of 3 images side by side that's going to represent some sort of media that is not sports related and it's not, say for instance, news related. It's going to be like sort of a movie, video game, book kind of a thing. I would suggest you stick with some more visual medium. But take a look at what we got going on here. We got 3 flat designs, and they're all featuring that same kind of concept of having midtones and highlights and shadows and stuff. If we were to get a little closer here, we can kind of see a little more detail with some of these things. Like for instance, if you look over here at the bird, you can see we've got sort of highlights on the tail feathers and shadows on the tail feathers that sort of follow along with the tail feathers. We've got a little shadow on the wing, we've got a little shadow on the legs and on the feet and stuff, a little shadow beneath it, shadow here on the sort of breast and back and beak, and highlights on everything and stuff. So the idea here is that you're going to be basically applying what we've been working on for the past few weeks in the same sort of manner that we've been doing for, but you're going to be making your own designs based on a book, a movie, or on a TV show of your choosing. Let's take a look and see a little more detail what I'm expecting from you guys. All right, so we're going to create 3 flat designs that, when side by side, are easily recognizable. That's the big key here, right? You want to make sure they're easily recognizable as being representative of a book, film, television show, or video game. So I don't know, like maybe like you think to yourself, like, I don't know, like Wizard of Oz, right? Do like a pair of ruby slippers, do a little tin can, like oil can, do like a little lump of straw, some of that. I don't know, like a witch's hat or something. You want to do something like a video game and do something like I don't know, like Skyrim. You could do like a different kind of you could do like a dragon's, head, and maybe an axe, and maybe, I don't know, some sort of like mountain or something like that, one of those things, or arrow in someone's knee. Yeah. Anyways, each design needs to be unique. So if you want to do a video game like Call of Duty, you can't make 3 different guns. You want to make 3 unique items. So like, to think yourself, Call of Duty, whatever, I don't know much about Call of Duty, but if that's the thing that you want to do, you just want to make sure that you're just not doing the same thing. Even if it's like, okay, so if you can look at that, you can describe that as gun, then let's even if they might be like different looking guns, don't do that. Just find something unique in terms of each thing you do. All right, so we're going to abide by the following requirements when we make the designs. Each design needs to have a circle that's about 4 pixels thick. Now, again, this is going to like change depending on how big your design is. So maybe 4 might be like at the very least 4. So you want to make sure it's like big enough to have detail inside of it, and you want to make sure that the strokes are thick and purposeful and stuff. I'm going to just kind of add on to that. All sharp corners should have their corners rounded on the stroke. So you don't actually have to have strong stroke. You don't actually have to have rounded off corners on your squares. You could have like you have sharp corners. You look over here, like for instance, I mean I've got little sharp corners there, but the strokes themselves have been rounded off. Same thing here. The little beak comes to a point, but the stroke has been rounded off. There's a couple of sharp points here or there. The whole point there is you want to make sure that you don't have any like jutting out like edges here or there. You want to make sure you have rounded off corners and that they sort of match up. And then I'm also going to, let's think here, put on all strokes should be placed on the outside of your main of your design's main body. So for instance, think back to when we made the video game controllers, where we put the stroke on the outside, so when we put the shadow and the highlight, we could just easily fit it in by just doing sort of the intersect shape building tools and stuff, right? So each design needs to have a discernible shadow, midtone, and highlight. Think in terms of like just creating that little shape. For instance, here we got shadow, highlight, midtone. We've got shadow, highlight, midtone. I mean, I just did white with like a bit of a, what do you call it, less opacity and stuff. So even though this looks like it could be like white, if you were to sample this color, these would be two different colors, even though like they're both basically white, sort of put on top of this. It would still be a different color than what we've got over here. So make sure you can just do that. Obviously, you can do other colors if you like. That's fine too. But shadow, highlight, midtone. Each design should have at least 3 discernible shapes that serve as inner details. So, for instance, if you want to make a gun from Call of Duty, you want to make sure that you don't just do like a silhouette of a gun. We can't just do a silhouette. We want to make sure that we're actually drawing different shapes, combining the shapes, turning them into paths, adding other shapes on top of that to create different sort of just different sort of looks and different sort of details and stuff. All right, and then when we make the details need to cast their own shadow on the main body. Think of the buttons that have like shadows kind of casting down. So if you've got anything with any kind of depth, make sure that it has to have some depth that's being sort of casting a shadow and stuff. A good example of that here is on the gavel, where if you look a little closer, you can see there's a bit of a shadow kind of hanging down from here and from here as well and stuff. That's interfering with the highlight and stuff. I don't know if that's a mistake or not, but there you go. All right, so with that being said, the shadows and highlights in each design should follow a consistent light source. So if the light's coming from like the upper left, all the shadows should be on the lower right, and all the highlights should be on the upper left, right? Your details should have a harmonious palette, no bright primary blues, reds, or yellows. So just think in terms of like just the like the sort of fire engine red that I always say, just stay away from those. Go to any number of your palette builders and find something sort of easy on the eyes. Okay, when you make your design, now here's where we're coming back to the little lesson that we did on copyright. You can use other designs you find on Behance, Dribbble, or other sites as inspiration. Inspiration is bold there. Inspiration doesn't mean copying. If your design looks like you've tried to reproduce another person's art with minor changes and submit it as your own, you're gonna lose points. Because we've talked about this before, about like, if when you find someone else's design, right, the moment they create that, it's copyrighted. Now, granted, you register your copyright with the Copyright Office here in the United States in order to have some legal protection, but it doesn't change the fact that if you create something that's your own thing, that's your own property, and if someone else copies it and distributes it in some other way, that's a violation of your rights. So we want to make sure we respect people's rights and stuff like that. Now, obviously, we have sort of leeway when it comes to education, so no one's gonna care if you like put Alice in Wonderland on your like a tracing of the Disney Alice in Wonderland on your school book report. That's not what we're talking about here. The end of this the sort of the what we're aiming for here. The aim of this is to show me what your design is. So in this case, I was looking at a picture of a gavel and a picture of a balance and a picture of a magnet. Now, granted, I could have found very easily any number of vector images of all these things, because you can find thousands of vector images out there, but don't copy someone else's stuff. Make your own thing. Even if it doesn't look the way you think it should look, that's not what we're going for. We're not going for like how pretty it is and how how we're just looking for. Mostly I could recognize what it is, and therefore I could recognize what book, movie, or TV show that you're going for, and that you're following through with the requirements down here. So an example of what I'm talking about here is this. All right, so we've got three different shapes here. We've got our do that, right? We've got our circle down here, which is like a plain circle, right? That's fine. That's good. No, it's not actually. It's not okay. That's no bueno. That's not okay, as the Spanish say. No bueno, right? These right here. These are good. These are fine because you've got this shadow, and we've got this highlight, and this one here is also okay because we got like a highlight and we got a shadow down here as well. Now, granted, in these two right here, I would say this is less flat design. You can always use gradients with flat design. That's fine. But this right here is kind of what I was using before. This is fine right here. This is also fine. You can use either one of those. Here's an example of creating sort of complex shapes here. So in this case, we've got this sort of bulbous, sort of like almost like two spheres, like kind of attached to each other. And I've got a little shadow down here showing where that one sort of sphere ends, the other one begins, and this one down here. So we have a highlight, shadow, highlight, shadow. They follow the same kind of sort of light source here. Now this right here, even though we have a consistent light source, we couldn't do this if we wanted to have like the shadows falling from above. We would want to make sure that we're doing, say for instance, making a point here and like sort of drawing this here and then clicking once and then sort of putting this down here and then sort of going around it and making our highlight, our shadow here. Let's get rid of the borders. let's make this black. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter. We'll make it black for now. But in that case, what we'll do is we'll grab this guy, Control D, Shift, intersect. Then we'll have to go back to black again, get rid of the strokes again, back to this, black, and then make this like 20%. Right, and then this right here, this is fine as well. Right, so this is now gone from no bueno to bueno because we have effectively molded the shape using our shadows. Our highlights, once again, we would want to sort of like place over on this side here, create this little shape here, and right, maybe a little. Okay, there's that, and then we can just once again make that into white, pull down the opacity, and then make this 0, and then from there we can actually just alt drag this over here, shrink it down some, maybe rotate it, and then drag it up. Maybe zoom in. All right, so you guys see what I'm saying here. Let me just find this. How do I grab this? Oh, I see. Grab this over here, and then pull this back. All right, cool. All right, neat. All right, so you see what I'm saying. So now this is excelente instead of bueno. So right here, we want to make sure we don't have just like a flat color. We want to make sure we have shadows, we have highlights, and the highlights and the shadows both go with a consistent light source, and the highlights and shadows should suggest the shape of your so the sort of 3D shape of your designs. All right, so if there's like any kind of rounded surface, your shadows and your highlights should reflect that. Okay, so this is what we're working on this week. Throughout the week, I'm going to be posting little quick tips that I'll ask you to watch, and you don't have to do anything in terms of those. You can just watch those, and that's going to give you some pointers on how to create some cool things in graphic design. So yeah, this has been a really fun thing here. So I hope we can create some really cool stuff. And yes, y'all be safe.